How's that cupcake?
Busted. I was gonna put it in my food log.
Oh, no, look. I truly don't give a SHIT if you lie to me. But if you lie to yourself, right? Bye-bye.
I started Power for Life because I wanted to give people power for their own lives. What can we do for you?
I want to be able to take a punch.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Clients love me, and if they're cool, I'm their best friend.
The guy was weird, okay? He just gave off a weird vibe.
I lead with my butt. See my form?
Yes. I don't have anything in common with it except a couple abnormal kind of behaviors.
We had some personal issues.
And how did you handle that?
You want to date me? For $100 an hour? You have got to be the worst rich guy ever.
It's not making me any less attracted to you. Hey, I'm in a movie.
I'm gonna need you to keep your distance from Kat. If you try to contact her, the law won't be your only problem.
Are you threatening him?
Are you threatening me?
You told me you wanted to learn how to take a punch. What do you think, you ready?
I didn't know you were this angry.
Do yourself a favor. Just start dating some lovely thing who's gonna be nice to you.
If you're gonna start to romance me, I'll stab you.
You have feelings for me.
You have no idea what's going on in your own brain.
So he's your boyfriend?
No.
Did I have a shot with you?
The short answer is no.
What's the long answer?
Do you want to make out?
I should just take out a restraining order on you.
You really do sound married.
Hello. Fellas, thanks for coming.
Firstly, I'd like to apologise for wearing shorts.
Not just shorts, sandals and shorts, guy.
They're Birkenstocks, actually.
It's hot outside.
It is hot outside.
Totally okay.
And it's appropriate for the movie, so anyway.
So first up, I mean, there's so much being written about this film, Andrew, because you're known in the indie world for doing these sort of really great low-budget comedies about human behavior. How did you approach Guy, Kevin, Kobe, and how did you guys take his approach? Did you look at his work before this, or did you think about results as something that would be standing on its own and different from his past work?
Well, you know, I wrote, because I'd never done a movie with, people with agents before. And I figured it was something I was going to get around to in this lifetime. But I sat down. So for me, I couldn't help but try to approach it as a kind of, artistic puzzle to solve. Like, what is
just the agents themselves?
Oh, that's a whole other puzzle. But for what would it mean for me to work with, with really seasoned, experienced people? I didn't expect that I was going to be able to work in exactly the same way, and I thought I'd probably build it differently from the ground up. So started out just thinking, well, let me make this easy for myself. You know, who do I want to work with in my dream world? Who would be when I think about professional actors, who specifically am I thinking about? So just started to think about people who I liked, who I was interested in, who I was turned on by artistically, and I've been a fan of Kevin's for 20 years and been friendly with him the last few years. So I'd always wanted to do something with him, and started to think about Kevin. Started to think about Guy, who we'd had a breakfast meeting a couple of years earlier, and I've been a great fan of his work, and was just had a great time talking to him at breakfast, and so. And it already, just once I had the image of both of these guys in my head, I was already amusing myself. It already there's such different flavors, and yet the more I thought about it, I felt like there was some maybe unexpected kind of overlap, or there was something I could do with these two flavors. So really started to conceive the movie specifically for the two of them, which is great. It's a cockamamie way to work, because the chances that I would actually get both of them to show up and do it were not necessarily particularly high. But it helped me, just as a writer, it helped to get me going and to crank me up.
Well, you've kind of always written with people in mind, right? Whether they were close friends of yours, like Justin Rice or the woman from Funny Ha Ha, right? You sort of write with those people in your world in mind.
It's a great little crutch as a writer. It's very helpful for me just to spark my imagination, and to bring things into the realm of the real. It's all well and good to dream up characters, and ultimately you're doing that anyway. Even if I'm writing something for Guy or for Kevin, I still have to. I'm still dreaming up a character because even if I wanted to, I don't. For starters, I don't. You don't. Anyway, let me try that sentence again. It helps me to ground a character in an image, and it's hard to explain exactly what that is because I'm not writing the movie about Guy Pearce or Kevin Corrigan, but I am using the sound of their voice in my head to help spark something.
Do you tell them that you've written this for them?
No, I did once I sent them the script, but they didn't know when I was sitting down and writing. I didn't know if it was going to work until
when someone tells you that they wrote this for you, is that a compliment or does that feel like more pressure?
It's a curious thing. I look forward to seeing what people mean by that when they say it. And they do say it sometimes. I thought I wrote this with you in mind.
Do you ever take offense to that?
It depends on what they come out with. So that's what you think of me. Sometimes it's like having someone do your portrait. It's like, that doesn't look like me. I don't think so. But I thought it was a pretty accurate, fairly accurate likeness. Andrew's script that he wrote with me in mind, the character.
Can you talk about your character a little bit and how there is a likeness to you, if you don't mind?
Now I have to commit to this.
I roped you
mean,
in
there
on
are
that
things
one.
about the character that are, there are some parallels between myself and the character, he's pretty dysfunctional. He's newly rich and divorced and just reeling from all kinds of trauma and
it's a beautiful performance. Some of the moments that you have in the film, particularly in the end, I don't want to give anything away, but one of your final scenes is a really vulnerable, really, really incredible moment. I thought, you put your hands up and you sort of realized how much you've screwed up.
Well, thank you.
Tried to do that without any spoilers. Guy, what about you? This is written for you. What does that do to you when you hear that?
In this case, I was very excited because I knew Andrew and I knew Andrew's work. Not very well, as he said. We'd met, we'd talked about something else, but at that time I looked at Andrew's other work and really loved it. So I feel like Andrew's one of those directors that I would just come and do anything for, because I just sort of love where he goes with characters, and I love the way he looks at the world, and I love the way his characters are sort of explored and realised. So I was excited by that. And I've read things before that other people have sent me and said, there's only one actor for this, it's you. And, and I read it and I think, there's no way I can do this. And then you feel an awful pressure because you feel bad if you're going to let them down, I guess, But you have to be honest, and if it just doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. So in this case, it was a blessing, and it worked well. But I did sort of keep thinking back. I couldn't remember really what we'd said in our conversation when we met. I suppose you wonder why somebody writes something for you, because on some level you're trying to understand how much of yourself they've incorporated into the character, and potentially, as Andrew says, it's not that he's writing a film about me. He's not writing a character that is me, but I'm some sort of prompter, So I get that it's a murky area, but it's hard not to try and imagine what the process of writing must have been like for Andrew. And I try to imagine myself, if I was writing a script myself, if I would probably need to do the same thing, think of certain actors and whether or not you would then use them in the end. But so it's an interesting process. And obviously at the other end of the spectrum, you get things where the person who's written it has never even considered you, and you love it, and for some reason or other it just works really well, that you can fit into that world, you know.
And your character is sort of beaming with positivity all the time. Are you like that at all?
No. Well, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm probably a realist, and I've probably been more pessimistic in my life. But I.
Was it fun to play that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, you know, he's a complex character in that there is a business that he's trying to run. He owns and runs this gymnasium, and you know, you could see there's sort of pressure, self-imposed pressure to do this job well. And I myself have been in and out of gyms for 30 years, so I've witnessed, and I'm quite fascinated by the people in this world, particularly the people that run this world, the gym world.
Why? What fascinates you about them?
Well, I think the obsessive nature of it sometimes. You know, I know that with fitness and health and diets and all that sort of stuff, we can easily become obsessed by it, or we can kind of have to just completely run from it. I think that we often can believe that all the answers to all our problems are going to be there on that walking machine, or on that, you know, on those weights or whatever. So it's a really interesting place to put all of your problems. And I have seen trainers over the years who, and not just trainers, but the people who go to gyms sometimes, you know, loading up all of their internal stuff in this little sort of fitness bubble. So I just find it an interesting world. So I was curious to know what we must have spoken about regarding fitness, or my experience with gyms, or whatever that perhaps prompted this story. I couldn't remember myself. So
was it? Did you have a conversation where Guy talked about gyms or anything like that, or was he just drinking like a green smoothie in front of you and the idea?
No, well, yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of the biceps in my.
He was just doing push-ups for no reason, like at breakfast.
He did mention having been Mr. Junior Victoria in his youth. I don't know. We were sitting there for a long time.
By the way, I
What
won a
is Mr.
bodybuilding
Junior
competition.
Victoria? What is Mr. Junior Victoria? What is that?
It's a bodybuilding competition which I won when I was 16 in Australia. So the state of Victoria. So it was the state championships. Yeah. So.
Wow.
I know, it's this weird random
so
thing.
random.
I did once, and I went, okay, I've done that. Never did
Why
it
aren't you
again.
guys acting more impressed? You won a bodybuilding competition. How many of you have done that?
I think it's more weird than impressive.
Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, and any of you, feel free to, he will respond to Mr. Junior Victoria. You can call him that. And he's fine with it.
So it was just that? It was that he had won that?
And how did I bring that up at a breakfast meeting?
I don't remember, but it was a nice, long, leisurely breakfast. So I
had lots to tell you.
I think we told each other lots.
It wasn't in the handshake. Guy Pearce, Mr. Junior Victoria.
Exactly. AKA. Yeah. So that was in my head, you know, boy, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to reconstruct now too. Obviously, having been through all of it, what were these pieces or things that I was taking from that meeting? But you know, some of it was just from having met you, but also there was some sense of having seen you on screen so often, and some sense of your career, and some feeling that in some perverse way, you know, you've done so much dark material, and you're so good at it. But I'd seen Guy go to dark places as an actor often enough that there was some you know, a strange instinct in me where I thought, I think these same things that make him so good at, you know, playing psychopaths and obsessives and all, you know, all these that I can make a romantic comedy out of that. I can take that same energy and I think maybe do something that's warmer with it, but still somehow that same drive that takes you to that place. I thought it would be fun to twist it.
I'm glad you did. And you just started going to the gym too, hadn't you? Like a year or so ago. It was a couple of years ago.
Well, yeah, about 2 years ago, I started going. This the only way I was ever going to justify going to the gym to myself was to call it research. So when I was starting to conceive of and write the movie, I did about halfway through the movie. Guy's character takes Kevin's character to a weightlifting gym, and that was the gym I started going to, and I really grew to love the place and the characters in there, and some of the characters in there have little roles in the movie. And I worked with trainers for about a year, and I got probably as good shape as I will in this lifetime. And then we shot the movie, and I had no time to go to the gym. And then my second child was born, my daughter was born, and then I really had no time to go to the gym. So I've put on about 25 pounds in the last year. But I'd like to go back to the gym someday. We'll see. It sounds nice.
Well, you just said that you sort of grew to love the characters there, and I think one of the things that shows in the movie that's different about it is that it's about fitness. It's about people that train and care about their bodies, but you don't sort of mock them for being vain. You don't mock them for being involved in fitness. Most romantic comedies would have a personal trainer in it that is a joke. The joke is that he's annoyingly talking about his body all the time. Where you actually seem invested in what these characters are invested in and why they're invested in it.
Yeah, it's the only way I know how to approach writing or storytelling in general. To me, it's, I don't know. I mean, the joke you're describing doesn't necessarily sound like a funny joke to me. For better, I mean, I think it's in some ways it's my curse as a filmmaker that I don't know how to write a villain. I'm kind of only. I think every story I'm interested in is a story about people of different viewpoints, learning how to, or struggling with, or failing to communicate with each other. I mean, to me, that's the great kind of project of life. Is 100 different people have 100 different ways of looking at something, and how do we find each other through our eccentricities and.
Did you write this for Kobe as well?
No, and that was the great, the great kind of scare, really. I mean, that I had. Well, first of all, again, as I said, I mean, there was just because I wrote for these two guys, there was no real reasonable expectation that I could actually get them both to come do it. Just even if they both wanted to do it, there's a million ways a thing can fall apart. But as different as their styles may be in some ways on the surface, I did feel like there was, in my mind, in my imagination, there was a kind of surprising amount of common ground. And I feel like with both of them, they're both actors who I love watching them in part because they're very internal, and they both keep a lot inside when they're on screen. So I'm always leaning forward in my seat because I never exactly know what they're thinking. And which also became a big part of the energy of the movie. But I thought, well, if I've got two inscrutable guys in this movie, then I need a different energy to put between them and to make this thing go. So I need somebody. I need a woman in between who's going to be very warm, but also volcanic. That everything's going to pour out of her. And so I started to conceive this character, but I didn't know who would play it, and it was scary to not have a great sense of that, and couldn't feel more blessed to have found Kobe. And it was such a delight. I talked to her. We did a Skype call, and then I went to LA and we did a little screen test thing. I had an actor friend, come over, and we just ran a scene. And during the first take of that, I thought, well, I got to look professional here. So at the end of this take, I'll think of some direction to give, and we'll do a second take and a third take. But I just knew in the middle of the first take, okay, this can work, and that's such a delightful feeling to know that the pieces are going to line up and the thing's going to have the energy it needs. At that point, it's like 90% of my job is done.
Yeah, Kevin, talk to me about working with Kobe. You have some pretty great scenes with her.
I loved working with Colby. She was really funny. It was Canada Day on I guess her first day, and someone wished her like a happy day about it's Canada, and someone said, "How do you feel? How are you feeling today?" She goes, "I feel great. I feel like a million Canadian bucks." And I fell in love with her from that moment on, I mean, that just kind of anchored, that was our relationship right there. I just looked forward to working with her every day after that moment. I really wasn't, all that familiar with her work before that. but that was no problem after that moment. You know what I mean?
And you've guys got Giovanni Ribisi around there as well. There's some great faces in this movie. It seems like you really did get your dream cast.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, couldn't have been more delighted with each of these folks. It's and there's some, I certainly had some trepidation because you never know. I mean, you certainly hear stories of the Hollywood people come to town and they expect Hollywood things that you can't provide.
Wait, like what?
Oh, yeah, you hear stories. But honestly, but everybody we had was tremendous, and I do think it's kind of self-selecting. I mean, I think in a way, all of these people can get certainly paid better for doing something else. I think none of them would have showed up unless they really meant to be there and really meant to take part in the spirit of this thing we were doing. So such a thrill, an honor to have these folks, many of whom I've been, fans of for decades, come down and just kind of play in the sand with us.
It's so interesting to hear you say, Guy, that you were such a fan of Andrew's work and that you would sort of do anything to work with him or do any project that he was working on, because I would say that none of his work looks anything like a lot of the work, most of the work that you've done, right? I mean, it's all much lower budget, it's much smaller, you've done some small, like, personal films, but his films particularly are, they're known for, maybe using the word wrong, but meandering people kind of figuring it out in scenes. They're not really punctuated by clear beats, like I think even the indiest of indie movies that come out most of the time.
That's what I love about it. I love the fact that I often struggle sometimes with those defined beats that are conventionally kind of laid out in films, and obviously the more commercial a film in its approach or in its budget, that sort of stuff tends to be far more prominent. And so, but it's not like real life, and I love the way, as you say, and that it's fairly clear to all of us that Andrew's work, allows that meander. It allows things that are awkward. It allows questions to sort of be raised without necessarily having to be answered. And as an actor, I find that really exciting. So to me, the budget of a movie is by the by, unless it affects the amount of time that you get to shoot the thing. That's a problem sometimes. But ultimately, it's just about finding the truth in what you're doing, I suppose. And look, it's great fun to go and do Iron Man 3, but I don't do many of those kinds of films, to be honest. And it doesn't feel very realistic to do a film like that, to be honest. It's like doing a big show. It's like doing The Lion King on stage or something. You know what I mean? There's something otherworldly about it. But doing something like this, you get to really incorporate what you feel about real life into a movie, and take some liberties and make people laugh and kind of play with it a little bit. So it's just so much more satisfying. And look, the thing I also like about the work that I get to do, as I'm sure all actors would say, is the opportunity to do a variety of different things, to be eclectic in the kinds of films that you do and the kinds of characters that you get to play. And so, to work with a director that has a unique voice is unusual, obviously. And to be able to work with someone like Andrew and some of the other people I've worked with is really special. So, it's...
I think it's just a wonderful thing to hear as a fan of Andrew's work, to hear an actor say that I would do anything to work with Andrew Bujalski, because mostly you hear actors say, I would do anything to work with Martin Scorsese, and you're like, yeah, of course you would.
I'm never working with Martin Scorsese, ever.
He's off the list.
He's off the list.
He's done. Did you have any fears, any different kinds of fears or insecurities going into this with these actors in terms of your writing, in terms of maybe punching it up or adding comedic beats here and there, making it a little more, you called this a romantic comedy, for instance?
Yeah, I'm wondering if I should stop doing that, because I wonder if I'm getting into trouble.
It is a romantic comedy.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And look, it would not pass muster in Hollywood romantic comedy screenwriting 101. I mean, there's plenty that we're doing, certainly structurally. I mean, for one thing, first and foremost, you watch the movie, there's not one clear protagonist, and so that alone is like, that's not going to work in a Hollywood romantic comedy. But I think we're taking a lot of the energy and we're using a lot of romantic comedy elements and and borrowing their energy and building something with it. So yes, in my mind, absolutely, it is. But I have to be careful about who I say that to, because I think.
And maybe it's the term rom-com that actually I think this is.
Well, it's a disgraced genre. I mean, it's a genre that's in terrible disrepair. And the studios don't make them anymore anyway. It's kind of a dormant genre in a way. But what I always liked about it, and I've written some. I had one Hollywood job where I got paid to, which was great, to write a studio romantic comedy, which never got made. But I've got a little bit of experience in that kind of more conventional realm, and they're really fun. I like them because they're the only kind of all the big genres, they're the only one in my mind that is rooted in human foible. That even the most mechanical of romantic comedies, and there can be really awful. I mean, I get it. Like I haven't paid to see one in like 20 years, but they're about people not knowing themselves or thinking that they don't want this, but actually they do. And that to me is a kind of a fascinating thing to root a genre in. It's in a weird way. And usually they're so rote and boring, but there's the opportunity for a lot more humanity and complexity there than most of your kind of conventional big genres. So I like that. I like being able to go and play in that and make my own weird thing out of it. That's what I got to keep telling. I think I have to preface it like I can say it's a romantic comedy, but I have to put like 10 qualifiers in front of that. Like it's an eccentric, weird romantic comedy. And
what I think is different about this in terms of romantic comedies as well is Kobe's character has so much agency. As a female protagonist or one of the protagonists, she kind of messes with the male leads a lot more than you see most female leads do in romantic comedies.
Yeah, well, that's been around. That's I feel like that's an old kind of screwball thing. Women messing with men is always funny, except when it's happening to you.
There's one thing aesthetically that I noticed in this film. There's a lot of like old school wipe transitions.
Yeah,
I'm curious where that came from. What?
Is the truth is that I did not think of that when we were shooting. After my daughter was born right at the end of the shoot, and then and so we started like that meant that we started watching more movies with him just because we had to do more like we got to kill time with you while something, I don't know. So anyway, I was watching Star Wars with a 4-year-old, and I was like, how come nobody does these wipes anymore? These are great. It came exactly from Star Wars. I thought, I called up Robin, the editor, and I said, let's try some Star Wars wipes.
What did she say to that? Was she like,
She said great. She said great. But we still... Sounds like a product. Star Wars wipes, yes. I was using them on the baby's bottom.
But you've always been someone who's sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say obsessed, it's sort of an exaggeration, but I would say interested in aesthetics of the past. Computer chess, you have 60 millimeter black and white on Mutual Appreciation. Yeah. You've always been interested in using things from the past, and it seemed like a way for you to connect that old obsession of yours or former obsession with yours with this new, very modern film.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, in general, I'm always attracted to. I love picking up, as with like I'm talking about screwball comedy. I mean, there are things. So much good work has been done in a century plus of filmmaking, let alone the human history of all the arts, and there are always phases and things that go in fashion and out of fashion, but. It almost never works to slavishly try to recreate something from the past that has come and gone. But but I do think you can always look for kind of discarded pieces. Things that nobody does this anymore, but I think there's still some life in it. I'm not going to do it I'm not going to pretend that it's 1975 and therefore this is going to work the same way now that it does then. However, if I see something that's lying around and nobody's using it, and I think I know how to get something out of it, like a nice little Star Wars wipe, then we'll pick it up and try it out. And in the case of those wipes, it was not like instantaneously clear, what was going to work. I mean, that was part of the process of editing, was figuring out where do these work and not work, and where can we get good energy out of them. And
everyone knows what we're talking about with the wipe transitions, right? Everyone knows what we're... Okay, just making sure here. It'll go like this or like this sometimes.
It's like
Yeah,
when the
go.
image wipes the other image off the screen. So instead of a straight cut from this shot to that shot, just one image wipes across. Does that make sense?
How many are there in the movie?
Not many. Not well. There's some in the montage.
Four? I think there's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and we had to. I mean, there's a whole. We found a strat. I won't get into it.
Did I get a wipe?
You got a wipe.
Did I?
You got to wipe into a split screen, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah.
And it's a split screen of just you.
That's right.
I
It's
love
me and
that
me.
moment. Yeah.
Right. That's in the montage. Things get real kooky in the montage.
It was so interesting because a montage, you would normally see a split screen of 2 separate characters, but in the midst of this montage connecting all the characters, we had a split screen of you just doing 2 different exercises.
That was in my contract.
Well, a guy is very.
No one's ever done this with me. Please, guys, thank you.
That was actually one shot. So guy just. Sorry.
Split screen, or wipe this conversation.
Yeah. All right.
Guy, how much were you in training to play this character? Is that just you, or did you work out a lot more to be able to do this character?
No, I worked out a lot more. Yeah.
How much were you working out?
Well, I mean, I just would try to get to the gym every day and a lot more running. So I started running probably 2 months before. I mean, I do a bit of fast walking and running whenever I can anyway. I've got dogs, and so I generally try to stay active, and I try to go to the gym a little bit to some degree, even if I'm just lifting light weights. I just like to stay relatively in shape. But I wanted to build up a bit, and I wanted to get my cardio up. So I started running every day before we started the movie, and then once I got to Austin, I was running there as well. But I came from an Australian winter into an Austin summer, so that was a little transition I had to try and make.
You guys shot in an Austin summer?
Everybody in
June,
Austin
wasn't it?
shoots. Yeah, it was June and July. Everybody in Austin shoots in the summer. I don't know why. It's stupid.
Why?
Because
It's so hot.
It's hot.
And I'd done a movie in Austin 16 years before in the summer, and that was the hottest summer they'd had in something like 27 years or something. So I feel like my only notion of Austin is that it's like the desert in Australia. You know?
It took you 16 years to get back because after the first one, you're like, never again.
We should point out that Kobe Smulders, who has more outdoor running scenes than Guy does, was 3 to 4 months pregnant when we shot. Wow. She's not a normal human. She's really not.
Continue.
Well, my wife was pregnant at the time as well. I mean, it was just like and then she was at Sundance for the premiere of the movie 3 weeks after she gave birth. I've never seen her not looking like, I mean, it's just not normal.
She's an alien.
Physically or mentally, to be as tough about it and she's the least complaining actor I've ever met. These guys are great, but
I was just gonna say.
But we complain a lot.
they occasionally,
Like, it's so hot, Andrew, I can't run anymore. And he'd say, like, well, Kobe's pregnant.
Yeah.
All right, I'll keep running.
Like, can we just bring Kobe out? Look, she's pregnant, guys.
No, I'm really sort of baffled. I can't. Like, she's a mystery to me in many ways, and she's quite extraordinary.
There are instruments all over this movie. Your character plays drums. Kevin, your character plays guitar. They don't necessarily play into the story so much. Where did that come from? Your character just sort of jamming alone in the rented mansion.
It was in the script. Andrew wrote that in there. I mean, I play guitar. Guy and I both play music in real life, and I think you've said that you enjoy music.
Yeah, I just like watching them play.
Just wanted to have a guitar.
Did you guys play a lot in between shooting?
Well, drums aren't my thing at all, and I mean, I do have a drum kit at home, and Andrew said, I've got this idea, maybe he plays drums. And I went, I'm really bad at the drums. He went, great, great, I don't want him to be good at the drums. So I wasn't playing drums with anybody on set. And I mean, we played guitars a little bit when we were over at the set that's Kevin's house. But, I kept the drums just for when camera was rolling, really.
And Giovanni plays too, right? Doesn't he play? Yeah. So you guys would jam out a little bit.
It was a little bit of playing.
Yeah. When we were shooting in that house, in the house that it plays Danny's house, we had a Gibson showroom had lent us some guitars for the movie, so we had these beautiful new guitars. There were days in there where I felt like I was working in Guitar Center. Just every time I'd turn around, one of these guys was picking one up and doing fucking Stairway to Heaven again. No, he never did Stairway. I'm just kidding. But it was, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, that's a great environment for me. I do really. And there are two scenes in the movie. Well, both of these guys, are kind of amateur musicians in the movie. You just have scenes of them playing in their house, and then we also have two scenes with live music professionals. A great Austin artist named Elizabeth McQueen. We have a couple of scenes with her and her band playing, and then we also have a scene at my favorite bar in Austin, Don's Depot, where Don is playing. And I love shooting music. It's my favorite thing. It's such a treat as the director to say my job today is to I'll call action, y'all play, I'll watch, and that's my job. It's a lot of fun for me. It's the third movie I've done that has some kind of live music performance in it.
I think we're going to take some questions now. Who's got questions?
Coming. Thank you. Andrew, what are you working on next, or can you talk about it?
I don't know. I think I guess I'm writing a TV pilot thing, which may or may not go anywhere. And then I got a half a dozen other things that I want to do, but I don't know what it'll take.
Right here.
Yeah, this is going to be the last question.
This question is actually from Periscope, and they just want to know: do you guys, and hopefully it's a long ways off, but is there any sort of project you really want to be involved with before you finish your career?
Not for me specifically. I like to be surprised at what comes my way. So no, I have no specific desires, to be honest.
Kevin.
Yeah, I don't have it. I live in the moment. I just want to say, as we're promoting this film, it just keeps dawning on me every moment what a privilege it is to be in this movie. This just, if you had asked me this question, or if I had been asked this question a year or 2 years ago, I would say, I want to be in this movie. But I didn't know it existed then. It materialized, and that's just the privilege of my existence. It's wonderful that this happened. And to get to work with a director whose work fascinates me, to become part of something that he wrote, it's just a wonderful thing. And to get to work with Guy Pearce, there are certain actors I just would never think I would ever get to work with, and he's one of them. When I realized I was going to be working with Guy Pearce, I thought I'm gonna watch a Guy Pearce movie before I work with him. Which one am I gonna watch? There are so many great movies that he's done.
What did you watch?
I watched Factory Girl, and it was kind of like a fighter preparing for a fight. He's gonna watch a film of his opponent to see how I'm gonna work with him, and it did nothing to prepare me for the experience of working with him because he was Andy Warhol.
He's probably never been into a gym in his life.
It wasn't him. I mean, when I got to the set and met him, I was like, that's not the guy I saw in Factory Girl last night. This is some other character, and he's just different in every movie he's in. So it was just a thrill, this is going to be a real unpredictable experience, and so I don't know what's coming next. I'm game, for whatever, anything.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on the movie.
Thanks
so
you.
much for talking to me.
Thank you.